Here we are again, folks. This is a homecoming to a preacher. I'm a preacher. A homecoming to me is a restudy in some literature that was studied in the 70s. And now that I'm 76 years old and years have gone by, and there are some things that I missed in those 76 years. There are some things that I missed since 1972 when I got saved, that I've heard this story time and time again by preachers as I listen to them. They talk about, one of them talks about just taking a handful of duck down, press it in your hand and throw it in the wind, and then go pick every single piece of it up. You can't do it. Neither can you retract every single thing you said or did in your life. Now, God has forgiven me. He has forgiven me of my past. But He put in my mind up here a conscience. Now, I don't want to let the devil dig in my conscience and cause me to get out of the ministry because of things that I did in the past. But there is going to be a day of reckoning. If I could get all of the reckoning done on this earth behind me, I won't have to face a loss of reward. Am I going to be punished for those things that I've done that were offensive when I get to heaven? There's a system in heaven. This system that God set up is called a system of rewards. You will be rewarded for that you have done in the Spirit of God as you were supposed to with this body. Now, if you've done things in this body that you haven't taken care of, and God brings it to your attention, then you need to take care of it. I want God to use me. I want God to use this body, this head, this mind, this mouth, and I want God to use me. But the more that I seek for God to use me, the more I see that even some from the past I don't have a clear conscience on. So how do I gain or get or free up my conscience to be clear so that when I'm preaching, I'm not thinking I'm guilty of this? How can I preach to somebody else something that I'm guilty of? There are several basic steps which must be followed in order to have or receive forgiveness in your conscience and in yourself, and one who has been wronged. We've got a checklist here that we suggest. When I ask myself these questions, who have I offended throughout my life? I'm 76 years old. I probably have offended thousands of people. I know a lot of people that I offended that have died now, younger than me, much younger than me. In my younger years, my teen years, before I was even 20, I had a powerful job. Had between 70 and 100 people underneath me in a big factory. And I was a powerful young man. Stupidly powerful. I was working older people in a small town. The only industry in the whole town was this one little thing. And we had to work many, many hours per day for about 3 months a year And that was the end of it. And back in those days, I was a cusser and a heathen and a out drinker. And yet I had all this power over these people. Say, if I made such a list, would it be very helpful to using the assistance of maybe I look in the mirror? I have a mirror here and I look in it. That's a mirror of the good, clear conscience. And say, thank you, God, for forgiving me, and my conscience can be clear. But then I have the same conscience, and I turn here, and I look in this mirror. And I say, now, mirror, in my conscience, what do you see? And the mirror says, I see some things from the past. There are people still alive that you've offended. There are people still alive that you've not done right. There are people still alive that you owe an apology to. I don't want to get myself in a muddle and get beat up so bad that I'm no earthly good for God. The devil would want to come and say, you're so worthless that God can't use you. You got too much behind you for God to use you today. So, I have some little things that I can take care of, and those that I can't are gone, and God has forgiven me, and I'll accept that and not believe that I'll get lots of reward when I get to heaven for it. But those that I can fix, I need to fix. You say, Brother Peter, you're a preacher of the gospel. Yes, I am. I was ordained and licensed to preach in 1974. I have the certificate in my office that says Peter Hutchins, ordained, licensed to preach. And that was the thing. There's a question I would ask in my memory of my old conscience. Have you, Peter, stolen money or other items from stores, family members, neighbors, employees, or others in your past life? The answer to that is yes, I have. You're looking at a man that is very imperfect. In the flesh, I was a thief. Paul used the word perjurious. All the apostles, I was perjurious. I did everything, anything. I didn't care. When he held Stephen's cloak and stoned Stephen to death, do you think he returned the cloak? Do you think he handed it to somebody else? Or do you think that he took this nice cloak and said, hey, I'm not going to throw this away and I'm going to carry this with me. It gets cool at night. And Stephen must have had somebody give him this gift of this cloak. It must have been nice. There's no record of that. But if he did that, not only did he commit the sin of putting Stephen to death, but he steals his cloak too. Now we don't know that he did, but that is the principle of how things work in the life of a believer, non-believer. This is the mirror of what was, and now it's in your conscience. Have you lied to anyone in your life and not gone back and said, that was a lie? I need to confess. Do you know that person that if they know that you were telling an outright, bold out lie, will hold that against you all your life? They'll say, you know, I don't know, You come before this tribunal and they say, well, you know Peter lied to me. You know he lied to me one time bad. It was a real serious thing and he lied bad about it. If you've got that in your conscience, you can find it and you can find who it was. You need to make it right. I need to make it right. How can I preach to anybody else other than preaching to me first? I have to preach to me first, and then I can preach to others. Have you lost your temper with anyone? Having anger can cause a deep wound in a friendship. You may have really been justified in what you said, but not in the way that you said it. That's a tough one. I'm going to look in this mirror right here of now today's conscience a week ago. So a week ago I had this rogue come in my yard. He's been a rogue for years. Claims to know God, claims to know everything, yet he's still a rogue, a thief, he's still a drug addict, he's still all of the things that come with that type of life. And my demeanor to him was pretty terrible in a sense. He brings these two roller poles in here. One of them was already mine, that he picked it up out of my yard. And he wants to sell it to me. I could be spiritually nice, in which I kind of was. I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you $20. You can leave the poles here. When you come back to get them, you bring me $20 and you get the poles back, even the one you picked up out of my yard. I didn't pick it up. I go, oh yeah, you did. Yeah, it was my pole. Well, I've dealt with people like that now for 40 years. I felt it when I first went into ministry some 40 years ago or so, 50 years ago, that's what God wanted me to do. Wanted me to work with those type of people, and I did. And they stole everything that I owned, everything. And many of them would steal it and come back and want to sell it to me. Have you damaged the reputation of anyone? Have you engaged in gossip, backbiting, slander, or other activities which have hurt others' reputations? Slander is telling the truth with the intent to hurt the other person. The story I just told about the boy, did I tell that story with intent to hurt that person? Or to just clarify that that's the kind of person I'm working with? And I, back years and years and years and years ago, back in the 70s, I used to go to Tennessee Temple a good bit and listen to good preachers. And I heard this one preacher preach about this fella. He was drunk and whatever. And he used to steal a man's chickens from the back of the chicken pen. He'd reach in there, grab one. And a little while later, he'd come up to the front of the place, and he'd tell the man, I want to sell your chicken. And the man would look and count his chickens. He said, they look like they're all here, but that looks just like my chicken. And he said, well, I'll sell it to you. And he sells him the chicken. And goes and gets him some alcohol. And a day or two later, he comes to sell him another chicken. Well, he reached in the pen and got another chicken, brought it around to the front, and sold it to the man. Now, we deal all the time with these people, the same people that do the same thing. They'll steal something out of your pile of stuff and bring it over there and say, hey, let me sell you this. And lie up and down and swear it wasn't yours. And want a couple dollars to do something with. And it's not to get something to eat. It's usually to get something that's bad for you. Now we're going to look in another mirror. No, we're not going to look there yet. We're going to go to another thing. Have you been ungrateful for what others have done for you, failing to show proper appreciation to those who have gone out of their way or made personal sacrifice to help you? Is this certain to offend them? Do you know that I don't think, looking back in my mind's eye, that I helped in many areas of life with some brothers that have gone on to heaven? I perhaps didn't help the family as much as I could have. I'm not going to get in a place where I beat myself completely to death over all these things. But all these things right now, I'm trying to get my mind so that I can look in this mirror of a clear conscience and then turn around and look in this machine that I'm preaching in, or stand in the pulpit and preach to a group of people and not be bombarded by my own bombs that I dropped out of the sky years ago, and they've been floating in the sky, and now I'm up there preaching, and poof, one of them hits me. And then poof, another one hits me. And the devil comes along and says to me, you don't have any right to be standing up here preaching. You don't have a right to be up here. You've held a bitter spirit towards someone because someone offended you a long time ago and you didn't get that forgiveness behind you. Well, I thought I took care of all of that. Well, is there anybody out there that you might have missed? Well, I know this is going to be the month that we're going to try to take care of those that I missed and anything else, so that I can stand with a clear conscience before a group of people and say, I have tried my best to take care of anything I have failed in my past life. Say, my failures have been too many to take care of all of them. So I'm going to have to rely on God to take care of many of them. Forgive me of them and take care of many of them. To maintain a bitter spirit toward them or anybody you've ever been bitter toward, when you pray the Lord's Prayer, you are asking God to forgive you in the same way that you have forgiven those who have wronged you. Forgive our trespasses as we forgive our debtors. That's those that we trespassed against, and the debtors, those who have trespassed against us. We say, Our Father, which is in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And this is where we need to be. Have you rebelled against or resisted authority of those who are over you? Has your attitude or your actions reflected disrespect for the proper authorities of parents, teachers, employees, law officials, or others in authority? Guilty. All I can say is I can point a finger at me and say guilty. Right here, guilty. I have had disrespect. Some officers of the law do not deserve your respect. Some preachers of the word do not deserve your respect. Some people just in general do not deserve the respect of anybody. But Jesus did not disrespect anybody. He called them snakes and vipers and serpents. And you did devour people. And he told the truth. But he didn't do it in a disdainful way or a hateful way. We have to be careful we're not hateful. We live in a tough world today. And we have to be careful that we don't demean the job of a person, even though they don't themselves respect that job sometimes. Have you had a prideful spirit? Have you conveyed the idea that you or your work is more important than those around you? Have you illustrated this with argumentative spirit or distaste in ordinary people? I'm an ordinary person around all of the ordinary people. If you put me in the crowd, walking down the sidewalk in New York City with all of these people, can you tell me apart? Can you say there's a man right there with a bad heart? I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about spiritually. Can you say there's a man right there that doesn't mean what he says, that talks too much, that has a bad attitudes on some things? Or can you say there's a man right there that tries his best to walk perfect in the eyes of God? It's in the eyes of God we need to walk perfect, but He wants us to look right to our neighbors also. Have you failed to give genuine love when others react to you? Did you respond back to them with genuine desire to learn and meet their real need? Or did you react to them because they reacted to you? What about that? I think about my neighbors. Neighbors today are just like neighbors at any time in the life and history of myself even, of man. I don't want to appear to my neighbors self-righteous. I don't want to appear to my neighbors as a man that doesn't have time for them. But today, people reject God. They're not rejecting me. They're rejecting the God that I'm trying to bring to them, but they have too much in the way. It is almost impossible to fight the television today. People are stuck in that television and what the devil's putting on them, and you can't get through to them spiritually. People are stuck in their telephones, and you can't get to them spiritually. You can't even talk to people today. I visit houses. I knock on the door. Can I come talk to you about the Lord? Can I talk with you? Or come in. Sit down. And the TV's on. And it's live. And there's everything on it, from cussing to nudity to shooting to banging to fighting to and I'm right in the middle. I have interrupted the person's program. And they really want to see what the next action is going to be. There's 10 to 15 actions in the movie, and those actions are supposed to keep you during the dull parts so that there's a new action coming up. And that new action is the people, the very people that are in those phones, that are in that television, that are in those games, are the ones that go out and get a gun and shoot a bunch of people. Their mind has been robbed by the devil in these All these systems that are out here today, these warring, these fightings, these out. Do you know that little children right now, 4 and 5 years old, are sitting with machines in their hand and they are playing games to where there's somebody walking down the sidewalk coming toward them and they have a gun. And the minute they see that person, they are supposed to shoot him. And so they shoot him. And then they keep walking. And then another one and they shoot him. And they do that on that machine for months. And their numbers keep going up. This kid's good. He's going to shot every single person that's come his way now for 1 month. If you put a gun, a real gun in his hand, and put him out on the side, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to do what his mind is programmed. He has programmed himself to do. That's shoot somebody. Without conscience. He's been shooting on the program now for months without conscience. So now he walks out and he shoots in a crowd or a bunch of people, and the police get him and they talk to him and they ask him. And he'll stand there with, well, I really didn't know it was wrong. No, he didn't. He'd been totally duped by the devil, totally programmed in his mind to do what he did. And that's why we have people doing that today. They've sat for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I have a neighbor 3 or 4 doors down from where I live. Have I been in his house and talked to him? Yes, I have. And while I was talking to him, he probably killed 100 people on the computer. Just bam, I got that one. 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 And he's at the same time talking to somebody else on a computer somewhere else. And they're in a war with each other. And that guy over there is trying to kill this guy over here on this computer, and this guy over here on this computer is trying to kill that guy's people and whatever on there. They're having a war. I'm talking to him about the Lord, and he's using the Lord's name in vain, cussing, swearing, screaming, hollering, telling that guy, boy, if I knew where you were, and the guy he's playing again, I'd come over there and kill you. And I'm visiting, trying to talk to him about the Lord. And as I leave his house and go down the steps, I hear him all back, full blast into that same thing. Evidently his wife works. He's always on that machine. He's never out and gone. He's got a house full of little kids, and he's never talked to them either or do anything. He's in that machine. He has got himself programmed in that machine so that he cannot get away from it. Do you know hell's going to be like that? Hell's going to be a program that you wished you could get away from when you get there. It's very important to ask those who have been offended most of their forgiveness first. If this is not done, it is possible to attach an exaggerated sense of guilt to travail the offenses. I'm fighting to not have in me, because I'm on this subject, a overwhelming sense of guilt for that which I have allowed myself to do in the past. And because I allowed myself to do it in the past, now it's crept into the present. And I want to kill it before it goes into the future. I really would love God to be able to use me. But in order for him to use me, I have to do as I can. Paul could not go back. All the Christians that Paul killed, he could not go back. and make anything right. They were gone. You know, Paul had a group of Roman soldiers that followed him, and they carried over their shoulders and stuff these ankle chains and these chains, wrist chains, and they carried this stuff on them. They were heavy laden with stuff to put people in chains with, to take them back to Rome, to put them in the Colosseum and kill them. And God took this person, Paul, who was Saul, and said, I'm going to free you from the chains that you have, and I'm going to forgive you of your past, and I'm going to take you as you are, and I'm going to change you, and I'm going to make you be one of my head preachers, one of my guys, one of the ones to write in the Bible that I have for other people. You are going to be a living example. And Paul said many times, lest I become a castaway. We had carefree attitudes. And numbers of people felt that they were offended because of our carefree attitude. That we may have just ran over some people in our life and said, hey, like it or lump it, this is the way it is. Period. Either do that or get out of the plan. I don't care whether you like that or not. And they said, well, look, you hired me to run that machine, not sweep that floor. As I know I did. But you're going to sweep that floor if you're going to stay in here before you run that machine today. Well, you got another man hired to say, I don't care about him. I care about you, and I want your area swept and clean. Well, nothing. You do it. And so we have been so positive in our life and maybe have offended people in things that we've done. So we've got to get that cleared up. When you ask forgiveness. So I'm looking in this mirror and I'm inquiring, did this list have your mother among the 78 from whom you plan to ask forgiveness? I can't write down 78. I really need to do this. I need to back up today and hit them one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. The guilt she had for her mother was transformed to many other trivial offenses and resulted in the sense of exaggerating guilt. Now we've got to be careful. There's a difference between guilt and conviction. If you take conviction and turn it into guilt, you'll stand where I'm standing right now. I'm standing guilty of some offenses that I am convicted about that I would absolutely try the rest of my life never to do again. Cut somebody off short. Be offensive to them walking away when they're talking. Doing some things that can cause offense to other. There are small offenses. And there are great offenses, greater offenses, and then the greatest offense. The greatest offense you can do is not listen to God when He's talking to you. When God is saying, you need a clear conscience. The right way to it is to list the offenses that you do know, put them on your prayer list, Start praying God would open the door for you to see a person that you haven't seen in 20 years, but you know that you and he, or you and she, had an offense 20 years ago. And if it comes about that you meet them on the sidewalk, God put you two together so you're crossing paths like this. First thing out of your mouth is an apology. Hey, you remember Mrs. That this or that had happened, or I said this or that? I want you to forgive me. And I've done that, and the person said, I didn't even remember it, Peter. I hadn't even thought about it. I don't remember that. Can you tell me about it? And I said, no, I don't want to tell you about it. Just forgive me, and we'll forget it. We don't want to we'll make a new wound. But it was laid on my heart for a reason, so that God had that for a reason, so I could probably speak to that person and let them know that I was still in the ministry and I'm still doing what God would have me do. And I was sorry about doing that offense. That's the right way. To bring the levels of guilt down in your own life, which I have a level of guilt, first thing I got to do is lay it all on God and have Him help me to cross the path to get those who I don't even know that I've offended or whatever, to cross my path and even say to me, say, you know you offended me about 20 years ago. And I've got to say, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, or I did know that. I intentionally offended you, or I didn't, but you forgive me for it, would you please? The wrong way is something perhaps I've had. What would be called like a duck swimming on a pond. Here's a duck. He's floating on the pond. He's swimming. And he's swimming around and around and around and around. He's not going anywhere. He's just going around and around in circles. That's abnormal guilt. I've had some abnormal guilt. You say, Brother Pete, why are you talking about this today? Because I'm under attack. I'm under attack in my mind by the devil. And I'm under attack in my heart by a statement somebody made. Somebody hung a piece of paper on my door. They didn't sign it. I wish they had. It said, Christians don't steal. Somebody who says Christians don't steal think I'm a thief. I need to know why. I would like to know why, and if I know why, then I can take care of it. My conscience has been searching. And because my conscience has been searching, it's brought up matters that probably do not pertain at all to this particular matter. And until I find that out, I don't know. If you borrow from somebody and don't return, you've stolen. I'll just go ahead and say, I got a pitchfork standing in the back of my house. It's been standing there for 15 years. The handle's about rotted away. I borrowed it. You say you got things coming to your mind? Yes. I borrowed it. It's not mine. I need to return it. The trouble is I can't return it in its original state. It may have belonged to the man's daddy and he had it, or his granddaddy. And he had it, so he had the memories of his granddaddy pitching hay with it. And I used it one time and let it sit. Didn't return it. to return home. Remember the prodigal son? Returning home and asking his father to forgiveness. He carefully worked out what he was going to say. And when he met his father, he repeated what he had planned to say, word for word, in Luke 15, 17, and 19, and 21. We must think through the words we are going to use in asking forgiveness, and we must be sure they reflect the following insight and attitude. Your words must identify with the basic offense. If you know what the offense is, don't go up to somebody and say, if I've offended you. Say, do you remember the time I offended you badly? Uh-oh, now you're back in the right saddle. Identify it. Many people ask for forgiveness and never receive it because they do not see how they could deeply hurt the one from whom they are asking forgiveness. In other words, they're trying to cover up their own self and say, I really wasn't wrong. Yeah, I know I offended him. He deserved it. That's not the problem. That's not the question. Then that's not the answer. The answer is you directly offended somebody, on purpose or not, and you now have it causing you problems in your heart because it's between you and God, and when you pray, you have this thing come up and says to you, take care of your offenses. Put yourself in the other person's place. Where you have offended them, and put your eyes in his eyes where you've hurt his feelings. Think of all the harm and hurt, disappointment your offense has caused him. Let your offense break your heart. Neither God nor men despise a broken heart. Psalm 51:17. See also James 4:8 and 10. Let me tell you something. I'm a door knocker. I knock doors. And I take my little track out. And I say, I'm Brother Peter. And I take my little track out. And I say, I go down here to Faith. Oh, you go to Faith? Yeah, I go to Faith. I wouldn't go down there if it was the last place on earth. Oh, yes? Tell me about it. Well, so-and-so down there did this to me. I said, they did. When was that? Well, 25 years ago. So I go down to so-and-so, and I say, do you know John Doe? And they say, yeah, I know him. Well, do you know that 25 years ago, you and him had some kind of conversation, and he got the wrong idea about you, and he's holding a grudge against you, and he said he would not come down to this church because you're in it. Do you think you could go over there and straighten that out with him? I don't know what I did. I don't know how I hurt his feelings. I don't know what I did. Well, can you go over there and find out what you did? And say, hey, Jake, what did I do? Did I deliberately do something to you that caused you grief? Or can you tell me what it was that I said or did or maybe you know, and if you know, you better go back and say, look, Jake, I honestly and earnestly did offend you. I did say something about you I shouldn't have said. Would you forgive me? A 25-year-old grudge debt of words. You're picking up the feathers still. We'll be picking up feathers until we die. I'm going to be picking up these feathers that I threw out of one hand until I die. And you will be too. But we got to get all of them we can. Your words must reflect full repentance and sincere humility. Just as soon as you purpose to acknowledge where you have been wrong, to ask forgiveness, you can be sure that pride will attempt to come to your rescue. Pride tries to assure you that you weren't really so bad and that those weren't really so wrong. I've been preaching for almost 1 hour now. Let me see what my clock says. I can't see it for the light shining in my face. 45 minutes. In 45 minutes, pride has been attacking me, constantly saying in my mind, the other side of my mind, oh, that wasn't so bad. Or whatever it was, this or that, it wasn't so bad. Yes, it was. If it offended somebody, it was bad enough to offend them and need to make it right. These prideful attitudes will manifest themselves in statements such as the following. I wasn't so bad. That wasn't so wrong. I don't think I ought to carry that way. I think I was within my rights. Never are you within your rights to offend somebody, no matter what they do to you, no matter what they say about you. You say, well, I was wrong, but they were too. Never mind what they were. Right now, God's dealing with you and your side and your heart. You get you, yourself, you get me, myself, and I right. And you might can help that person you've offended to get right with you. These little tracts have 3 websites. One of the websites is www.faith Lagrange, which is spelled LAGRANGE.com. That's the church I go to. That is a pastor, as far as I know, has taken care of everything in his life that I'm talking about for my life. So you'll be listening to a man that's not a hypocrite, is not hypocritical in any way about these things. He is on top of being right. His name is Pastor Don Yancey. You punch in that Faith Lagrange, you can go to church with us anytime you want. There's a school on here. I know the man personally. It's www.Titus, TitusBaptistSeminary.org. TitusBaptistSeminary.org. He will put you through school for what you can afford to give. It's a free gratis school. It's a free Bible education. But it's not free to somebody. So if you're in it, you need to carry your end of it. You need to put your end of it in. Paperwork costs money. Sending and receiving computer items all day long from people takes your time up in your day. To sit in front of the computer for 10 hours a day conversing with hundreds of people, sending this one that, and that one this, and this one that, and that one this. That man's a laborer worthy of his hire. The Bible said, give them due penance for that which their labor is. And this man, Brother Dennis Farr, is due as for his labor. And then you have at the bottom, it's Peter Hutchins, and that's PHTIDBITS, and you're there now, evidently, if you're watching this, at gmail.com. I'm a computer illiterate person. I stand in front of this, I put these on but I have never read a Gmail to me. Don't know if I've ever got one. I had some maybe 17, 1800, 1900 messages on, but I don't know if I've ever got one Gmail. I've never seen it because I don't know how to get in the computer to get it. So I'm computer illiterate, but I'm not Bible illiterate. This is what counts. In a big sense of the word, I'm not Bible illiterate. I have a practice of digging in, studying, and getting what I can out of the Bible, which is what is important. So, I'm going to sign off for now. And the words of apology is, I'm sorry. And many people will say, I know you're sorry. You've been sorry for years. You've offended many people. I've done this or that. That's not what I mean. I'm sorry that I was that way. I'm trying not to be that way anymore. I'm a person that never liked to be wrong. Forgive me for that. And I was wrong in that thing that I did. I'm sorry about the way I lied to you. Whew, that's a tough one. Please forgive me. I'm sorry about the way I borrowed something from you and did not return it. Forgive me. Or I did something and something I painted for you and something got missing from your house. I've tried all my life to never, but ever steal anything or take anything from a person's house intentionally that I would have to face later. Been accused of some things. One day a lady accused us of some diamond earrings, and we found out how much they were worth and paid her for them. Later on, I found one of those earrings in a bucket of paint when I was washing up. She was right. One of them earrings did get missing. It was in the bucket of paint. It was not intentional. But I would believe even until right today, she thinks it was. And so things like that can happen. So we need to go through our memory and our repertoire and all of our stuff and see, do I have anything in this house that belongs to somebody else that I haven't returned? Did I borrow something I didn't return? I have loaned, I can't count the things that I've loaned that never came back. Sanding machines, paint guns, roller frames, roller handles, all kinds of things. Radios, tape players, boxes full of tapes, stuff that never came back. And some things legitimately haven't come back because I've said, don't worry about it. You just keep them. And so we need to get ourselves right with God so God can use us. I want God to use me. I don't want this little bitty thing that I've got before me right now and the problem that I've got. I don't want it to knock me out of being in the business of doing God's work. Well, our time is more than come and gone, I believe, and I can't see it, so I'm going to believe it. And we will see you next time. By the way, have a good day, and remember, if it's not a godly day, it's not a good day. Bye-bye.